Hey everyone, what's up? So this video is about how you can supercharge your front-end state management with Zustand and why I started using Zustand instead of Redux, which I used to use for a long time, and how it is kind of a very beneficial library that we will be seeing here. So these are a couple of pointers that I feel that makes it better compared to any other state management library out there. Of course, I have not used Recoil and other new libraries, but I'm just comparing it against Context API and Redux. We know that Context API has a lot of optimization problems. It causes kind of re-rendering and all that for even any state, any particular variable that is changed on a given application. So we won't be talking specifically about those pointers because those were improved and Redux has a lot of optimizations. But here is why you should pick up Zustand against something like Redux. Okay. So let me just walk you through Redux in case if you have not used it. So here you can see we have first file is the store where you configure everything. You create the store, you add all the reducers, and you create the types for TypeScript. So that is file number one. I mean change in file number one. Then you need to put a global context provider. So this has to be wrapped at the top level component. Now let's say you are very familiar with React and okay, this is the app gateway point, then you can actually you don't have any problem doing that. But let's say if you are a beginner to it, because for example earlier Next.js used to have _app.tsx for wrapping the applications. Now it's in the layout.tsx. So all these things you need to be aware of to know, okay, this is my entry point, and that is why we should be using. So again, this may cause trouble to someone who is new to React ecosystem and is trying to understand. Let's say they start with a Next project or any other project, and they might get confused with where I need to wrap this to the top level provider to facilitate state management throughout all of its children components. So again, this is something that is another important aspect. So we are counting the number of files that we need to change. So we need to create a store.js, that is number one. We need to add a provider in index.js, which is the root file, that is number two. Then we need to create a slice file, that is number three. Now you can see that this is very simple slice. It just updates the counter, the value counter. This is the initial state, and then you have reducers, you have increment, you have decrement, you have increment by amount, and then you are doing this, you are exporting actions and you are exporting the reducer. Okay, so this is the third file, and finally wherever you want to make use of, again you are adding this to the store, and I think this is same as the store.js we had at the top. Yep, that's the same thing. So currently we are at the count of how many files. This is number one. Sorry, this is 1, this is 2, this is 3, and this is the same store, so let's not count it here. And then you need to make changes in the fourth file, which is basically decrement, increment, and this is something I want you to focus on. So let's say you have n number of slices, you have counter slice, you have profile slice, you have user slice, etc., and then you want to use those actions to be dispatched. Then you'll have a lot of import statements, and this has happened with with me a lot of times. I create a profile which is very intuitive and needs to perform a lot of dispatching actions, and then this import cycle will become too big and bulky. So that is again something that Zustand takes care of. So this, you got an idea how you can do it in Redux. Okay, let's quickly go and see how we can do it in Zustand. So the first thing is that you need to install the npm library for Zustand, and let me just clear this off so that we could just see how easy it is. So I'll just use import create. That is my first thing. Then I'll define an interface. If you are in JavaScript, you don't need this, but since I am using TypeScript, I need to define it. So I'll put counter as 0, sorry, not 0, interface, so number, and then I'll define increment, which does not expect any argument and returns void. Similarly for decrement, and then increment by amount, which expects amount which is supposed to be in number and returns void. Okay, so I've defined the interface. Now I just need to define the store or the hook that I need. So use counter store equal to create, and I will specify my counters. Let me name it as counter state, which makes more sense. Set, and then I think we have methods. Let me quickly check in Zustand documentation. So I think I'll just copy paste this part so it gets me even more easier. So I'll do counter as 0, increment counter state dot counter plus 1. Similarly, I'll have a decrement state dot counter minus 1, and finally I'll have increment by amount, where amount would be number and counter would be state dot counter plus amount. And what am I missing? Oops. Yep. So that's all we needed to do. Okay, this is all the setup and of course I need to export this. Use counter store and let me format this. Yeah, so that's all I needed to do, and then I can use this hook, use it as a functional component. So one of the disadvantages that I have added is it's not ideal for class-based components. There are ways, and the most convenient is to wrap it into a functional component and then inject those props into the class-based component that is passed as a children. But since here you are anyways using a functional component and doing all that higher order component stuff, so I think this is not very ideal use case here. So that is one of the disadvantages, I would say. Okay, anyways, compared to simplified, now I'll go to the page. So I have this page and I've used use client because this is next 13. So in next 13 by default you have all the applications as server side components. Okay, so unless you don't specify use client, it will assume it is a server side, and for that reason it won't let you call these hooks, which is use counter state. Okay, so that is number one. And you can see, so if I go back to the page and if I refresh this, you can see again this is not a very good looking UI, but just wanted to explain the use case why you should try using Zustand instead of Redux. So you can see that the state is working as expected, increment, decrement, and we can have a button for increment by amount as well. Let's say const amount, set amount, use state, initially it is 0. Again I need to import use state, and let's have a button, actually let's have a line breaker, and then let's have an import, type is number, placeholder would be enter the amount, value would be amount, on change e set amount plus of e dot target dot value, and then we have button increment by amount, and let's take it up, increment by amount, and on click increment by amount, and what is the amount, we have it here. Okay, and let's have a line breaker here as well so that we don't get confused, and let me format this quickly. And if I go here, so let's say my number is 22, so 22 plus c should be 25, and you can see as it's working as expected. So this was the simplicity point. Now let's move on to the next one, which is code splitting means smaller JavaScript bundles. Now watch it carefully. When you do the Redux toolkit, although you are not using a specific slice, which is let's say let's say in some specific component you are not using the counter state or counter slice, but when you create the store you have to import these, correct? And then you have to import the state into your main component, which is the provider component. Where is it? Here. So end of the day you are importing all of this JavaScript bundle into your main component. Of course you are not using those states, that is another thing, but this is anyways going to get added to your JavaScript bundle which is problematic, right? Because this is a very small slice, but let's say you have 50 more dispatchers. In those cases you don't want to add these bundles throughout your component. You only want it where it's required. So if I give you an example here, I'll come, so this is my increment slice. I have also created a profile slice which just has a static value. Again, this is for demonstration purposes. So let's say tomorrow it had 50 more slices. Okay, 50 more dispatching actions we can call for now to make it simple. Increment, decrement, increment by amount, decrement by amount, increment by multiplication, whatever, and so on. Okay, now that will make this particular use counter store much bigger compared to the small slice which is used in the profiles page. Okay, And if I show you the profiles page, it is even simpler, something else. Okay, and so we don't need counter slice in profile page, and we want to make sure that when user visits this page, they don't get bombarded with those heavy JavaScript bundles. And that's where Zustand comes into the picture. So if I go here and if I quickly show you, let me go to the network tab. I have selected JavaScript and let me refresh the page. So if you know more about Next.js, these 3 bundles would be loaded for all the pages, any page route where you go. This page.js is the bundle that is created for this specific page. So you can see that the bundle size is 54.5 KBs. Okay. Now if you see here, again, this won't make much of a difference in this case. It would be, I think, more at max a few kilobytes of difference, like 1-2 kilobytes. But in case of big slice, you are understanding, right, how much difference it could make if they had 50 more actions. And it could be around 50, not 50 kilobytes, let's say 40 or 30 kilobytes of difference. And when you are using multiple slices at one page, again, in that case, the difference could go even beyond. So just see what happens. So here we have 54.5 kilobytes. And let me go to the home page and let me clear the cache. 54.5 kilobytes, or I think I should not have cleared it. Let me keep it. Okay. So this is my first one, and let me just remove this and go. Okay, it's already clearing. So let me preserve these logs and let me move to the profile page. So now you see these 3 are common. I think where is it? Yeah, 10.9 KBs, 1.4 MBs, 38.1. This is common because these pages are loaded for all the routes. But you see the difference in this. This is 55.8 and this is 54.5. So almost 1.3 kilobytes of difference for even the small size slice. Okay. So this is what I am trying to focus, put my emphasis on. In case of Zustand, your code splitting is more because you are specific. Okay, profile doesn't need all of that, so I'll just use not this page. I just use this particular hook, which weighs less compared to what you have in the other side. Okay, and for that reason, it is better. You can split it into smaller bundles. You can keep your front-end app as optimized as possible. Okay. Now, no provider wrapper, I think we already covered. We don't have any global wrapping thing. It's just that simple that you saw, right? What we had. Again, you have this in context API also, providing it to a global component, which is then going to handle the distributed states below it. So that is again something. And distributed states is similar to the code splitting thing that I wanted to discuss. Like you can have n number of store hooks and then you can hook them up accordingly. So it will make your code very distributed and very clear, and not ideal for class-based components, which we discussed why this is the use case where it is not ideal for class-based components. And for that reason, I feel that Zustand is a much better solution when it comes to handling state management in front end compared to any other front-end library. Of course, I have not tried them all. I am yet to explore recoil and everything, but I think Zustand made it pretty easy, very, very easy, very straightforward. And of course, there's this cool beer logo, which I really like. So overall, you can use Zustand, and I've also used it in some of the production applications without any failures or any issues. So I would highly recommend using Zustand to supercharge your front-end development. And that's all for this video. In case if you have any questions and queries, feel free to add in the comments. I would love to respond to them. And until then, see you and have a good day. Thank you.